Welcome to the Minds of E-commerce podcast, where you'll learn one key strategy that made leading e-commerce companies grow exponentially. We cut the bullshit and keep the meat. In a 15-minute episode, founders and executives take us through a deep dive of a strategy so you get to learn and grow your online sales. This is the very first episode of that podcast, and I couldn't be more excited. In today's episode, you'll learn from Gary Nealon, who founded RTA Cabinet Store, that he now sold, and he'll walk us through a social media strategy that allowed him to scale RTA's e-commerce sales to over $40 million a year. That's quite a feat, considering cabinets are likely some of the hardest things you could sell online. So, of course, through this episode, you'll also get to learn how he was able to convert and acquire customers for products so large, complex, and expensive as cabinets. I'm your host, Raphael Paulin-Daigle, and I'm the founder of SplitBase, a conversion optimization agency for lifestyle, luxury, and fashion e-commerce brands. This is Minds of E-commerce. All right, Gary, welcome, and thank you so much for coming here on the Minds of E-commerce podcast, and I'm super excited to hear what you have to say about the growth of RTA Cabinet Store that you've now sold. Yes. So now so congrats, by the way. And now, as you know, this podcast is really about diving deep into one strategy that was really key in growing one of your e-commerce companies. And here we're going to focus on RTA Cabinet Store, and we're going to focus on an approach you call the wagon wheel approach, which is essentially using non-branded social media assets around the company to grow a fan base and an audience that will be interested in the products you're selling. Now, before we dive into that, though, I'd love to know a little bit more. What are some of the juicy stats or the growth that you've been able to achieve with RTA Cabinet Store, and also maybe that approach?
Yeah, so prior to selling, we didn't have a single year where we grew less than 25%, which once you get up into the 8-figure range, that's really hard to keep going. The other cool thing, especially with this process that we did, was we were able to drop our cost per acquisition from about $120 per customer down to about $15. So
wow,
huge drop in cost per acquisition. That doesn't factor in sort of the cost to build out these assets, but those were kind of the two staggering ones. It allowed us to continue to grow where our competition didn't really know what we were doing, and then at the same time drop our cost per acquisition simply through leveraging a couple things that Facebook doesn't always count. So kind of the context behind how we got there was that we were growing pretty fast, but once we hit a certain level, our competition was knocking off everything we were doing, from our website to our ads. We literally were just having to reinvent the wheel every single week almost. So we kind of did some brainstorming, and we're like, how do we avoid them finding out what we're doing and still kind of insulate the company? And as you mentioned, we kind of called it the wagon wheel approach because it was the closest thing we could think of. It's, when you think about it, it's like the main business was the center, the hub of it, and then everything else was kind of spokes that came off of it, but they all funneled back into the main asset. And sort of our process for doing that. So what we did was we did a really deep dive on the avatar of our customer, because we really wanted to understand who they were. Super. And when we looked at it, we figured out what their hobbies were. For us, we had a really wide mix of customers, but we knew that, the female of the house was kind of the making, pick the cabinets, and then the husband kind of made to kick the tires and made sure the quality was good. Yeah. So we started creating.
Just a quick question on this, because I think that's something super, super valuable for the audience that I want them to really understand how they do this. So you're saying you're diving deep into the customer avatar, and being a huge fan of qualitative research and being one of the strengths of my agency, I'd love to know how did you dive into that customer avatar? What type of research methods did you use to get
there? So we did, this was already a couple of years in, so we did have a track record. We had a database of customers that we can kind of pull from. But since we had that, when we really broke down the customers, I just kind of give you a quick high level overview. We knew we had 5 different customers. 4 of them were professionals, and 1 of them was the kind of the homeowner side of it. So we took all the professionals and we ran them through Clearbit to attach to append business information to those email accounts, so we could see if there's any patterns within what they were doing. And then on the homeowner side, we dumped that into Tower Data and got a really deep profile of income levels, where well, we already knew where they're located, but income levels, number of children, like everything that we'd really need to know, buying habits, shopping patterns, any of those kind of things. We dumped them all and just appended all those emails and just looked for patterns in there. We also took that, we put it into a lookalike audience or a custom audience on Facebook, created a lookalike audience so that we can get an idea of like what pages they were frequenting and all those kind of things. And that led us to basically some of the hobbies that they had. We knew, as an e-commerce business, especially as we were kind of brick and mortar, people didn't want to talk to us. They just either wanted, if they wanted to buy a kitchen, they wanted to buy it. They didn't want to like have this long relationship where, they're reading articles and all this stuff on our Facebook page. So we couldn't get any engagement. So we essentially said, what if we just made it so it wasn't even branded to us? We literally just created non-branded pages. So we targeted things like cooking, baking, golf, barbecuing, cars, all those things that we knew people were talking about that were in our group. And we were able to build these massive Facebook pages just through doing that. And we got a lot of engagement because there was no salesy stuff. It was literally just, for the cooking site, it might've been recipes and, free product launches, those kind of things. So we got a really high level of engagement. We were able to build up an audience of about 1.5 million between all the different platform assets that we had. And then once we got them kind of built up, we were like, okay, now let's engage them on other platforms. So we would pull them off through free giveaways and different things to get them on email lists. But the really powerful aspect of this is that Facebook saw that as part of our audience because it was all under our umbrella, even though it didn't have our brand on it. So when we were running sales ads or any kind of, any big offers, we were getting it as basically they saw them as one of our clients versus a cold traffic. So we were paying, our cost per acquisition normally was about $120. Right. We were getting it from anywhere from $15 to $18 by using these audiences. So when we figured that out, we're like, we want to scale these as much as we can. So we just started creating more and more of these. Not all of them worked. We would test them out, give it a couple $100 just to see if we can get some traction on it. And if we got some traction, we'd dump more money into it. But if not, we'd just drop it, move on to the next one. So it was a really interesting concept. And, people were able to engage with us and talk to us, not realizing that it was an actual cabinet store that they're talking to. And then once we'd get them onto an email list, we'd softly introduce them to the aspect of, new kitchen, and we'd have free kitchen giveaway and all these different things. So we had a really intricate system to pull these guys off of these social media pages and get them into our ecosystem.
That is amazing. So, in summary, you're selling a product that's very complicated and something that people are likely not just going to browse, on Facebook to, just for the sake of browsing, right? These are, I'm guessing most of them are custom as well. The dimensions are custom, things like that. So pretty hard customer to pull in and get them to buy online. Those are custom, complicated products. You drastically reduce your cost per acquisition for a pretty high average order value, I'm guessing, which is fascinating. But that was really through understanding that audience and creating sort of pages and social media assets that was really focused on those interests and not on your brand. So it's really staying away from it, but kind of pulling people back in using the interest as a hook, I guess.
Exactly.
Get them there. So I'm interested in knowing, when you started this, it seems like it was Facebook based, right? So you would create Facebook pages with recipes and things like that. Now, Facebook's organic reach has gone down. It seems like pages aren't as important as they used to be, right? Now you got to put much more money towards your posts for them to be seen. So how does that approach translate in today's world where we're a little more in an Instagram world than a Facebook world? And how do you see this approach being adapted?
Yeah. So when we would do that, we would actually create a social media page for each one. So like for the cooking page, we'd have a Pinterest page, Instagram page, and Facebook. Facebook was the easiest for us to scale because we, at the time, it was really easiest for us to target their likes and hobbies and everything else. Instagram's obviously caught up with that. I still love Facebook because now with messenger bots, you can pull them into the messenger bots and really have much better engagement with them than you even do on email. So we've been shifting that way for any of the assets that we're building now is, okay, Facebook's still a great platform. Let's just make sure that, we get them over into the messenger bot at the same time as liking the page and following it. And there are little tips and tricks you can do to kind of get that initial boost of a page, like, small $5, $10 boost for posts that you see are doing well. Making sure that if somebody likes the post, you actually invite them to like the page. Just those little things that can help it grow, at least to 10, 20,000 followers pretty fast, and then start pulling them off onto these other platforms or onto messenger bot or onto email and those kind of things.
Awesome. So I want to dive deeper into this, but now if we go to step one, which is really identifying and understanding your audience, when you look at your database of thousands of customers, do you usually focus on the customers with the highest frequency, highest average order value? And now I'm guessing with kitchens, people don't come in and buy cabinets, a few times a year.
Yeah.
But what segment do you pick to analyze?
So for us, we knew half of our database or half of our customer base was professional, half of them were homeowners. So we knew that the professionals might be a little bit harder to target in terms of hobbies and everything else like that. So we focused really on the homeowners that we knew we could have the most engagement with, and that if we can get them before they're ready to buy, get them even thinking about it, we can catch them before all of our competitors are running their ads, because really all their ads were running towards like the buying aspect or the buying intent.
Way deeper.
We wanted to go way before that and talk to them before they're even thinking about buying and actually convince them they want to buy.
Right.
So that was kind of how we honed in on the homeowners. In terms of segmentation, you're right. Like if you have a type of product where you'll have repeat buyers or something like that, you really want to look at the lifetime value, and you might even have, 3 separate buckets or 4 separate buckets based on the value of that customer. So that's right. Like any other products that we look at, it would really be the lifetime value. But since with kitchens, it was really a one and done. It was, how do we target them and look at their hobbies that we know, like maybe a higher value house or something like that. We looked at those aspects as well.
Awesome. So that's step one. Now step two is once you understand those interests and hobbies, you create pages around this. So can you give us a few examples of types of pages that you've created?
Yeah. So the easiest one, at least for us to kind of do the transition, was anything around cooking, because you're already in the kitchen when you're doing it. So people are very passionate about it. So those were the ones that kind of scaled fastest, like barbecuing, cooking, baking. Ironically, we had like a coffee page that grew to 150 or 60,000 followers. Really nothing to do with kitchens, but we knew that they had passion for tasting coffee and all these other things that kind of led towards it. The harder ones were the automobile ones and the golf ones. Like how do you correlate that back? But it's really, it's a long 60, 90-day email campaign that just kind of not manipulates them, but that kind of convinces them that they want to start shopping for a kitchen.
Totally.
So yeah,
that's fascinating. So now you've got, let's say, like a golf page or a cooking page with 100,000 likes or, followers if it's Instagram or whatever. Now, how do you lead from talking about barbecuing or golf to cabinet shopping?
Yeah. So it was what ended up happening was we would then go out. The golf one was probably the hardest. We would go out and we'd actually find golf products that we can convince, they were either free giveaways or giveaway contests, something like that, to get them into an email system or just gather their email. Then we would use sort of the ask method, Ryan Levesque's process, to kind of segment them down into different buckets. And in those questions, we would get really creative of like how we can start talking about that and like introduce the idea of it. It might be, how old is your house or something like that. Just get information from them that we can then start dripping into an email campaign. So that was really the process. It was, build up an audience, either give something away or have some sort of contest to get their email address, put them into sort of the ask method segmentation system, put them into different buckets. And then in those different buckets, talk to them about different topics. The cooking ones were the easiest transfer, but yeah, everything else we figured out ways to kind of segment them and put them into buckets.
Interesting. So how long would it take to go from, let's say, someone signing up to actually going to the topic of cabinets, for example?
It would really depend on the process. So if anything doing related to cooking or baking, we would do that pretty fast. It would be, we would literally ask the questions of how old is their kitchen? Is it functional for you to be able to cook or bake? Have you thought about remodeling your kitchen? And all those questions would kind of dictate how quickly we started talking about it. So if we knew that they had even thought about it recently, we'd immediately put them into a system where like, hey, by the way, we're doing a free kitchen giveaway contest. If you want to enter it, here you go. And then we'd segment them down further.
Amazing.
And a lot of times it was sort of that abrupt where we would literally just in the sequence just be like, hey, by the way, our partner company over here is giving away a free kitchen. If you're interested, enter. And if they entered, then we knew that they were somewhere at least thinking about, remodeling a kitchen or fixing up their house.
Fantastic. That's fascinating. Now, let's say there's a company that would want to replicate that approach with, whatever product they're selling. What would be the main pieces of advice you would give them if they wanted to do that today? Like, how can they be successful doing it?
Obviously really understand the avatar of your customer. When I talk to clients now, most of them think they know who they're talking to, but they really don't. Like until they, it's kind of shocking when they kind of dump all that information. And they're like, oh, that's not who I thought we're selling to. So really understand that and understand the language that they're using and figuring out like what it is they do. It may be some of the same hobbies that I was just referencing as well. But you really want to hone in on those kind of like the core hobbies and the ones that you see that are viral. Like there's certain things that really resonate well, like recipes. People download recipes, they'll share them all the time, whereas some other things they may not. So focus on the ones that have a lot of shareability and a lot of virality, and just start with one. Don't dump a bunch of money into it. Start with like short increments and just see if you get any traction. Like if there's not any organic, natural people liking the page, then you're probably on a topic that they're not going to share. So focus on the ones that that they're going to share and just build the audience first. Don't worry about how you're going to get them off right away. Just start building that audience and start engaging them, getting them used to a rhythm of communication, whether it's 3 times a week, 3 times a day, whatever you're comfortable with, and just get them in that routine. And then once you get that audience going and you see that they're starting to have a conversation, then start to look at ways like, okay, how do we transition them off? Is it a free giveaway? Is it just, free downloads? What is it? And just start testing different things, because each audience that we had, it was a little bit different. It wasn't like a cookie cutter where we did the same thing for every single one.
So always be testing.
Yes, always be testing.
Awesome. So one of my final questions, Gary, because you've given so much gold, but you also have tons of e-commerce experience, and I'd love to know now, if you were to start over again with a new e-commerce company and you were at the 1 million to 5 million mark and you wanted to scale the company further, what would you do differently?
Ooh, what would I do differently? That's a good question. I guess it would depend on the product, but I would diversify traffic flow as quickly as possible. I think we waited. It was something that we learned in probably year 4 or 5, but when I look at guys on Amazon or even on just their storefront, they get comfortable with one traffic source because they've become good at it. And they don't really test out the waters on other stuff because they're either don't understand it or don't have the experience in it. But I would say once you hit that $1 million mark, you want to diversify as much as possible, because, as you know, with like Amazon or any of these platforms, even Facebook ad services, the TOS can change any moment now. And if they do, you could literally lose all your traffic. So for us, our business, we never had more. When I sold it, we never had one traffic source that was more than, I think, 18% of our business. So even if one source went down, it would hurt, but it wouldn't completely cripple the company. So that, I would say, diversify as quickly as possible once you get comfortable with a platform. Either hand it off to somebody below you that's, that you can train and to take it over, or outsource for the other aspects of other platforms.
Fantastic. Well, Gary, thank you so much value. If we look at what you said, well, first of all, it's really about, you want to understand your audience, and that will help, I'm guessing, with even more than just creating Facebook pages. If I look at how we work with e-commerce companies and try to understand their audience, that helps us understand, okay, what are the objections on the product pages? That I'm sure on your side, custom cabinetry, lots of objections, questions, and doubts. And when you understand your audience, the questions they're asking and the doubts, that helps you improve the product pages and increase conversions. So really understand your audience of who's buying from you. Then what you did is you took their hobbies and you created social media pages like on Pinterest, on Instagram, on Facebook, that were based on those interests. And your goal was to get these people to sign up to a giveaway or to related bonus offers or things like that that's related to the hobby. And then from there, you transition them into a cabinetry topic, where eventually they would be segmented into people that were interested in having a new kitchen or buying cabinets. And there you could put them in a sequence, and eventually they would become customers that really scale your company.
Exactly.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, that's good overview there.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much for all this gold. Now, if people want to learn more about all you're doing and all your fantastic tips and strategies for marketing, because you're incredibly sharp when it comes to growing e-commerce companies into the millions, where can they follow you?
Yeah, if they just go to my blog, it's just GaryNealon.com. I literally just do a brain dump every week. I'll just put a bunch of stuff up there based off, little things I remember that we did through the business and even things I'm helping clients with right now. So you get a lot of good resources on there and it's all free. So head on over.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. That's it for today's episode. And in the next episode, you'll learn from Catherine Lavery, co-founder of Best Self Co., and you'll learn how to utilize user-generated content to disarm objections, drive engagement, and build an 8-figure e-commerce brand. To make sure you don't miss any of the new episodes, subscribe to the podcast, and if you like what you've heard, make sure to leave a review in the iTunes store. That would truly mean the world to me. Now, if you're working on an e-commerce store that does over $1 million in online sales and increasing conversions is currently a priority, make sure to go to splitbase.com/assessment. That's splitbase.com/assessment to get a free analysis of your website and find out what's the #1 action item our conversion experts recommend that you do next to boost conversions. Now, if you have any guest requests, questions, or comments, tweet me at rpaulin-daigle, that's RPAULINDAIGLE, and I'll be happy to hear from you. Thanks again for listening.